Hi, I'm Jeff Payne and I'm part of the communications team here at BehaviourWorks Australia. We're a research institute, part of the Monash Sustainable Development Institute, looking at behaviour change. Pocket Change is a series of short videos. We produce one each month, looking at the work of our researchers and their research and how they can change the world for the better. Hi, Jeff Payne here again, talking to Dr. Brianna Wright. Hi, Brianna.
Hi, Jeff.
About the Big Sound Festival and your work looking at the way women have been treated in the Australian music industry, which I guess was a kind of a result of the Me Too movement.
Well, the Me Too movement really sparked a global reflection in many industries. And in the Australian music industry, that manifested as a Me No More hashtag, with a lot of women and non-binary people coming forward about their experiences of problematic behaviours, of assaults, of discriminatory behaviours, etc. And there was also a documentary called Her Sound, Her Story, which really unearthed a lot of the problems that people were facing in the Australian music industry.
And you and I attended the Big Sound Music Festival in Brisbane, where women and men were invited to discuss these sort of issues. What were the sort of findings that you found in that workshop?
Yeah, so essentially we were invited to Big Sound to help them have a conversation about a lot of the problems that they were facing, and they were really interested in how to achieve change in that space. And so we had a conversation with a lot of people from the music industry, from the performers themselves to the managers, to the roadies, everybody involved. And what we actually did was we presented them with 4 common problems that people were experiencing in the music industry at the time, and let them choose which one they wanted to unpack.
Okay, so tell us about the 4 problems that we gave them a choice of.
Women and non-binary people are underrepresented in festival lineups. Mm-hmm. The second one was that there are some men in the music industry who exhibit toxic behaviours and don't appear to suffer any professional consequences as a result. The third was that the life of a musician can be quite kind of precarious, and the stress associated with that can lead to some mental health issues. Mm-hmm. And the fourth one was that there's an expectation in the music industry that you should always be on, always be available, that people should be able to contact you on your phone anytime, and you should be really responsive.
So let's talk about the behaviours that we identified as a result of this workshop.
So essentially we let the audience pick one of the problems. They picked the one around men behaving badly, as we called it for shorthand. Yep. So we heard a lot about women not being recognised for their role in the music industry, people assuming that they were somebody's girlfriend rather than a music professional. We heard about them being interrupted a lot, their voices and their opinions being dismissed. We also heard about, questions always being directed to men in a group setting, women not being introduced, and a lot of mansplaining and interrupting behaviours were common as well. And then, of course, there were some far more serious behaviours around experience harassment and assault.
Many of the men in the room were very, very careful after we explained these behaviours, how they took the microphone, how they spoke, and when they spoke. Because mansplaining is something, like a lot of biases and behaviours, that people may not be aware of.
Yes, exactly. And if I recall correctly, there was one very funny situation where a woman was trying to articulate a mansplaining situation, and the man behind her was trying to explain that the word she was looking for was mansplaining. But he was very aware of what he was doing and was trying to do it in a very supportive way. But the people who were there were very mindful about their behaviours and how they were communicating about the problem. And it was a very respectful conversation. We set up the ground rules at the start to ensure that people were kind of all on the same page about the type of conversation we wanted to have.
Talk a little bit about the drivers and barriers that you have identified in your research in this area.
So we know that a lot of the things that drive these problematic behaviours are around, problematic attitudes towards women and towards gender equality, the social norms in these industries. We spoke a lot about, I guess, the history of sex, drugs and rock and roll, and this kind of no rules environment which the music industry was known for, and how that was helping to perpetuate an environment where these things could keep happening.
It's hard to behave in an equitable way if you're a rock god, in many ways. That's the trope.
Yeah, exactly. And these hierarchies where there are some people put up on pedestals and their behaviour doesn't get questioned, they're approachable. And so we talked a lot about how all of those factors were creating this environment.
Tell us about how we were able to switch over to some of the positive behaviours to be exhibited or modelled.
So after we'd broken down the problem into its behaviours, we started to talk about what better behaviours look like. What is it that we want to see people do in the music industry that would help contribute to a solution to the problems? And so we got the audience again to generate this positive list of behaviours. And a lot of the things that they were talking about was things around how to elevate female and non-binary musicians, seeking out their voices, increasing representation in venues and at festivals. Another one was around making sure that females in a group are introduced and making sure that we show genuine interest in their role in the music industry and trying to avoid those assumptions about being somebody's girlfriend, and kind of create this environment where they're seen as equals. So 2 more of the positive behaviours that people would really like to see in the music industry is more attention to talent over appearance. And the second one was around respecting personal space. A lot of the inappropriate touching and putting a hand on the back of somebody's waist, etc., is mostly directed at female members.
Yeah. So what about concrete solutions to these behaviours? Have any been suggested?
So one of the ones that we discussed and is quite topical in the music industry at the moment is around quotas to increase female and non-binary representation at music festivals. So this is where you would set aside a certain number of spots at a festival to be filled by female musicians. They're very contentious in the music industry at the moment. I think it takes the focus away from talent. Mm-hmm. And so we had a bit of a conversation around this and how, somebody's attitudes towards gender equality might be really positive on the whole, but their attitudes towards a specific initiative, such as quotas, might be less supportive. Quotas have shown to be quite effective, but they can also be associated with backlash. And so it's about managing the attitudes towards the solutions and managing any backlash that might happen.
How do we bring about behaviour change when they are surrounded by such entrenched behaviours in this sector?
We talked around, what are the drivers and barriers to these positive behaviours that we'd like to achieve in the music industry. And throughout the session, we'd use smoking as a little bit of an example. And we reflected on how over a couple of decades, we had seen really dramatic change in people's smoking behaviour. It was no longer something that was common or accepted in the music industry anymore. And so we used that as a little bit of a comparative point and talked about how with consistent attention, dedicated interventions and solutions, that we could hopefully see a similar trajectory with these really complex, wicked behaviours in the music industry. A lot of the drivers of the problematic behaviours are around attitudes, not valuing and respecting women, and also the social norms that are driving this, like this is just how we behave in the music industry, it's what we've always done. And so we spent a little bit of time talking around like how to achieve that attitude change and how to establish more positive social norms in the music industry.
What next?
There are lots of positive small initiatives that are happening around promoting and respecting females in the music industry more, and we're seeing problematic behaviours being called out a lot more, which is really important.
Hopefully, when it comes to the music industry, a bunch of new normals about the way women are treated are being established now.
Yeah, exactly.
Brianna, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to know more about our research projects and the courses we do, you can visit the website at behaviourworksaustralia.org.